من الشيطان الرجيم قل أطيعوا الله وأطيعوا الرسول فإن تولوا فإنما عليه ما حمل وعليكم ما حملتم وإن تطيعوه تهتدوا وما على الرسول إلا البلاغ المبين وعد الله الأرض فيستخلفنهم في الأرض وليمكنن لهم دينهم الذي ارتضى لهم الله الذين آمنوا منكم وعملوا الصالحات الذين من قبلهم وليمكنن لهم دينهم الذي ارتضى لهم وليبدلنهم من بعد خوفهم أمنا يعبدون.
Assalamu alaikum. My name is Rashid Bahati. Today we have a very special presentation that's brought to you by Young Educational Services. A presentation that will serve as a special report in reference to a conference that was held in the city of Chicago that brought together Muslim leaders and Muslims that are concerned from all over the country as well as other parts of the world to discuss the critical issues which face the Muslim community. Today we have a very important person who attended that conference and was serving as a moderator and also is a imam here in the community of Los Angeles at MASJIDS. Imam Muhammad Abdullah will share with us some of the insight that he has gotten from this conference and the insight that he brought back from that conference. Imam Abdullah is formerly a senior associate director of the MBA program at UCLA, and before that time he also served as the assistant director of the undergraduate admissions at his former alma mater, Yale University. As I've stated, he is currently an associate imam at MASJIDS, where Imam Safir is the resident imam there, and also under the leadership of Imam WD Mohammed, they are currently working on a standardized curriculum for the Sister Claire Muhammad schools. Imam Abdullah, it is a pleasure for us to have you here today to discuss with us and give us more insight about the critical issues that face us as Muslims all over the world, and particularly the travels to Saudi Arabia and the conference in Chicago.
Well, thank you for your gracious introduction, and I'm happy that we're able to come here and sit outside and enjoy this good weather and discuss this, and hopefully we can add to the clarity and not the confusion with respect to this most complicated issue. Inshallah. Okay. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, in the name of Allah, the most gracious, most merciful. First, thank you for giving me an opportunity to try and speak to what is indeed a very complicated situation. But hopefully, through the materials that your viewing audience will now see that's coming, they will be able to draw their own conclusions, because you have people speaking from a variety of perspectives who represent a very much a cross-section of our community. I might say, as a backdrop to this trip, there was a delegation that was invited, not just from the United States, but from all over the world, that was invited by Rabata, the Muslim World League, to the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia for the purpose of really analyzing and seeing firsthand what the circumstances were, in fact, that were surrounding the very recent and unfortunate crisis in the Gulf that's been sparked by the invasion of Kuwait by Iraq. And this particular conference was really significant because it was the first time, as I understand it, that people really came from all over the world. I was fortunate to travel with Imam WD Mohammed from the United States, and we, along with about 8 others, went there. In addition to people coming from Afghanistan, from Russia, from India, from Egypt, from most of Africa, from North and South America. It was really a cross-section of people.
One question now. This is the conference in Chicago where everybody gathered?
No, I'm sorry. This is the conference in Arabia.
Okay.
That really, the momentum went into Chicago. So when you see Chicago, to really fully appreciate it, you need to sort of have the background. Because in fact, Rabata was hosting the conference in Chicago.
Okay.
And the conference in Chicago is called the Second Continental Conference of the Council of MASJIDS. The Council of MASJIDS is the Council of Masjids worldwide, with a Supreme Council based in the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. And the Secretary General Rabata, the Muslim World League, Omar Nasir, was the moderator for the overall conference. And they were hosting the event, which was planned, by the way, before the Gulf crisis. So when we had the conference in Saudi Arabia, much of what happened there carried over into the conference. And the idea of the conference, as I understood it from talking with Dr. Ahmed Gugbi, who is the Secretary General here in the United States for Rabata, and he was the specific host, and Muhammad Abdul Hai, who is the Imam in Chicago who worked with the event, their thinking was that they recall that in the history of our religion, that the masjid is the center of the community life. That when Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, made the hijrah, or left Mecca and went to Medina, that when he arrived there, the first thing he did was establish a masjid. And that was the center of the life there. So the purpose of the conference was to reestablish the masjid as the center of the Islamic community life. Not a business center, not an educational center, but the masjid. And so that was the primary purpose. The second purpose, as I understood it, was to make certain that that community life was holistic and reflected the entire spectrum of interest of the Muslim community, where the masjid was the center. And they felt that some of it was not getting down to the grassroots levels, that some masjids were not fully involved, and they wanted to really operationalize this Islamic history for us in such a way that we were living it in modern times. And that was the background of the...
I see. So with that being the context,
right,
and as you indicated,
right,
the conference in Saudi Arabia was actually set before the Gulf crisis even came about.
Correct.
Now,
no, the conference in Chicago.
In Chicago.
Yes.
Okay.
Right.
Okay. Well, that's very important to understand.
Right. The one in Saudi Arabia was called very suddenly because of...
As a result of what was going on.
Right.
Could you give us some understanding of what took place under the circumstances of the American troops being in Saudi Arabia? What was the overall atmosphere and what was the actual tone of that conference, seeing that there was a crisis going on in the area?
Well, one of the hopes was to provide clarity, because Muslims have been divided in their understanding of what is the appropriate response to the situation. And so this was an effort to bring together the ulama, the Islamic leadership, to provide clarity so that when we speak as a community, the world community of Muslims, one, has some better sense of it, and secondly, that the world community outside the Islamic community hears the one voice. That was the hope. Now, it was not a situation where people were coming there just to be entertained by Saudi Arabia. It was really a sincere effort to have dialogue, and it was very heated, very, very much so. And you had Sheikh bin Baz, who's the scholar in Saudi Arabia. You had the Mufti from Egypt, who was the head of the Al-Azhar, one of the oldest universities in the world. From India, the comparable person. From Nigeria, the comparable person. So you had people who, in their own right, are respected around the world, and they spoke from the Quran and Sunnah. So what came out of that was clarity. And that clarity was that Iraq's invasion of Kuwait could not be justified. And that we have to make our stand not on nationalistic grounds, but on Islamic grounds. So we can't be in favor of Iraq because we may be anti-Saudi Arabia. That's not the Muslim stance. We have to be in favor of what Allah and His Prophet have prescribed in the Quran and the Sunnah, and the prescription there is very clear. And so that came through. In terms of the American presence, that's our fault. Because we did not act, we presented an opportunity for others to come into the environment. So our appeal to them was that once this is resolved, we want you to leave and let the Islamic community be the mediating force with whatever should be the eventual settlement of interests that are mainly naturalistic, that are not Islamic. And I think that's what came out of it that was positive, as well as for me. I had a chance to meet some of the people that you only read about, and the first-hand exchange, it established linkages. So the momentum is we'll keep working together, and in fact, we have an invitation to go to Senegal and other places to really begin to work together, not when crisis happen, but throughout ongoing way.
Yeah. We have just been talking about the conference in Saudi Arabia and how that all came about. Now let's shift now to Chicago and the conference that was planned, obviously, for some months in advance. If you say it was planned before the Gulf crisis even came about.
Right.
Can you give us some overviews of the significance, number one, of that conference and some of the highlights that came out of it?
Okay. Well, it would seem to me that because of the Gulf situation, this conference took on increased importance. It probably helped the conference because many knew that the conference participants would consist of people who had recently returned from the Gulf, as well as the fact that the national audience of Muslims had not yet come together. And so here was the first opportunity for such a thing to occur. So I think the expectation going into the conference is that though the conference agenda was to look at the masjid life and dawah, which is the propagation of Islam through the masjid and other means to the larger community, it was expected, and it turned out in fact to prove to be the case, that the Gulf would loom large, coupled with the fact that some people who had not been in the discussion in this way in some time, Minister Farrakhan, Siraj, Wahaaj, and so forth, would also be participating. This was all leading to a conference now that was really going to take on importance in ways that perhaps could not have been envisioned fully.
Now, we have some clips of different segments of this conference, and the first clip we're going to take a look at is the welcoming. We have specifically Imam Muhammad giving a welcoming to the conference. Can you give us some background about the welcoming and then the press conference that came right after that?
Yes, one thing that I neglected to say, which I think relates to the welcoming, is that the masjid was the center of life in Islam historically, and that the masjid was being returned to its proper place in this conference. Now, Imam Muhammad, in his remarks in the welcoming, which he did so well, was he set the tone so that everyone can contribute to giving birth, or rebirth as it were, to the masjid's proper role in the life of Islam's evolution in North America in a way that's inclusive, not exclusive. The masjid life should be inclusive of all the dynamics that affect the life. And I think he set an excellent tone to say that I'm lending my voice to this, but I'm not the only voice. But I'm also bringing to it expectations that we can really do that which we set out to do. And I think that he did an excellent job with respect to that. The press conference that followed, there were some moments that were quite sensitive, as I think we will see. And I think Dr. Nassif, who is the Secretary General for Rabata, which was one of the founders of the organization that we were now participating in, Dr. Gukbi Ahmed, who is the local representative in New York, and Imam Muhammad really fielded some very sensitive issues that I don't want to spoil to take away what our viewers will see, but in general, we knew we were in for something special that we hadn't seen in some time.
Okay, well, now let's take a look at some of that footage, and we will be right back after you take a look at the welcoming address that's given by Imam Mohammed, as well as the press conference.
Many dignified Muslim brothers here, and the introduction will take a very long time. I have the privilege to request our very honorable brother, Honorable Imam WD Mohammed, to say a few words at this point in time. Thank you. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalatu wassalam ala rasulil karim sallallahu alaihi wasallam ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in. Amma ba'd. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. His Excellency Dr. Abdul Nasir, General Secretary of Muslim World League in Mecca, our dear Congressman Hayes, all distinguished persons here, imams from all over the United States. As a member of the Council of MASJIDS, a mosque, seated based in Mecca, I take the privilege and have the pleasure to welcome all of you here to this conference, and pray that Allah reward us with the good results that He will be pleased with. Thank you very much. Welcome, and we look forward to a very successful conference. Assalamu alaikum.
Statement reads as follows. Chicago Congressman Charles Hayes and United States Senator will be among the VIPs on hand tonight at Palmer House to welcome more than 700 spiritual and community leaders representing mosques and Islamic organizations from every major city in the United States, and a large number of dignitaries from overseas as well. Former world boxing champion Muhammad Ali and Imam WD Mohammed, sitting here, leader of one of the largest Muslim communities in America, will be participating in this three-day conference. The Continental Council of MASJIDS Mosques, sponsoring this conference, is affiliated with the Supreme Council of MASJIDS based in Saudi Arabia. The Secretary General of the World Muslim League, Dr. Abdullah Nasir, sitting here on the far left, who is one of Saudi Arabia's most outstanding educational and religious figures, will be here to deliver the keynote speech tonight. Other VIPs from Saudi Arabia and the Muslim world will be present as guests and participants are Sheikh Ali Al-Huzafi, Imam of the Holy Mosque of Mecca and former head of state of Sudan, Salah Al-Dahab, former minister of Akbar, Camille Al-Sharif of Jordan. That's the press release which is available to the press, and I'm sure you had some difficulty with some of the names. You can read them and get the correct spelling. And I'd like to just take a moment and introduce Dr. Nazim, who many of us who are here tonight heard from, a very distinguished member of the world community of any faith, former president of King Abdulaziz University, one of the fine universities in the world, and Secretary General of Rabita, which recently met in the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, bringing together scholars and leaders from around the world, in fact. And he was one of the key organizers of that. We'd like to ask him to say a few words to give you a better sense and answer any questions you might have about this three-day event, which we hope you will continue to cover. Dr. Nasir.
As a matter of fact, I wanted this press conference to concentrate on our meetings here, the Council of Masajid, because we want to give it the right publicity so it can be effective and representative of the community in the United States. So I thought that if we put our efforts together, I mean the people of the press and the organizers of this conference, we can produce a better conference, I hope, inshallah. Thank you.
Thank you. We'd like to ask also, I'll try to move the mic over there so for the benefits to hear a bit better. Dr. WD Mohammed, who is the leader and head of the New York office, which is based in Manhattan, and he is responsible for particularly organizing this conference, which works throughout the United States. I'd like to give him the mic.
Probably as you saw from the announcement, this is the second meeting of the MASJID in North America. This meeting was organized months ago in the 70s, and we thought it's about time to have a second meeting to see what we have done in the past decade and give some direction to our work, or the MASJID work in the future. And hopefully we are not going to just meet and disperse, but we want to come with really strong resolutions which we can follow up in the course of the year and make some achievement, inshallah, in the future.
This is the Imam WD Mohammed. Yes, go ahead and please.
The importance of the conference for us as imams and Muslims representing the propagation of the religion of Islam in America is tremendous importance. It's more than I think most of us can imagine right now. But I hope when the days of the conference are ended, Sunday afternoon or Sunday noon prayer time, that we will all have a better sense of importance of this conference for all of our mosques throughout the United States. I come from an organization that was militant, disciplined, well organized, but misrepresented our religion. You know that organization, the press know that organization as Black Muslims. We made contributions to the down and out African Americans in the ghetto, but at the same time, because of our mixed up ideas of the religion, we also presented many problems for the true presentation of this religion in America. So that burden is on us now. That burden is on these brothers here who are here from all over the United States. That burden is on us to correct the image of our religion and to unite with all Muslims, whether they be of our color or our race or not, to unite and work with all Muslims in America and outside of America for the good representation of our religion. Thank you.
Why don't you gentlemen just hold on to the mic? I know some members of the press were asking questions earlier. I think you had a question.
Yeah, I had a question.
Why don't you start and identify yourself if you would?
Peter Selmer, City News Bureau. As this meeting is a representative, almost various variety of Muslims in the United States, both from different, gathered different chapters or organizations, Muslim organizations. But I'm just questioning what is your organization's view to the conflict in the Persian Gulf and Jordan's stand, or whether you do have a stance on those issues.
As far as this conference is concerned, we are concentrating on our local problems and the challenges that are facing our mosques. And in America, we have our priorities. And so these are the things we will be discussing in our conference, and this will remain our priorities. As far as the event that takes place in the Muslim world, it does concern us. All we would like to see is that these conflicts are resolved in a peaceful manner. I think this is our strong feeling, as well as the feeling of our Muslim brothers in the Muslim world as well.
I support and agree wholeheartedly with what the President has said. that as a Muslim and as an American, born American, I will work for this issue to be included in the agenda of the conference, because I think it is a matter of great concern for all of us, especially for Muslim Americans.
Are there any other questions from anyone? Yes, sir.
I have a question. Assalamu alaikum. I was listening to your opening remarks and I heard a lot of good ideas. In fact, they're so good that it seems like they have already been done. And I'm talking mainly about the Islamic Society of North America and the North American Islamic Trust, whose headquarters is right here in North America and not any place in the Middle East. How do you see the relationship? I mean, it's not clear to me what the relationship between the Continental Council and the MASJIDS and the largest Islamic organization in the West. And if will there be overlap or whatever, what do you see in that regard?
Okay, there is one piece of information which might give you an idea of what kind of relation does exist or could exist. The Secretary General of this organization is the former president of the Islamic Society of North America we are talking about. And this means, at least personally, I have a strong commitment for the principles and the programs of the two organizations. Otherwise, I would not find myself in a leadership position in both organizations. So as far as Islam is concerned, as far as the challenges of Muslims in North America are concerned, I don't see any differences. In both organizations we are facing the same problems, and we are putting the same effort. And coordination, cooperation should not be a problem at all. And many of the representatives in this meeting are also members of the organization, and many of the members of the organization are also represented in this organization, actually in its leadership.
I think I saw a hand over here. Go ahead.
I'm sorry, but I still don't understand. You didn't answer my question. How will the relationship be? I understand that there are similarities, but if there are such strong similarities, why recreate the wheel? I want to understand what will the Continental Council MASJID do? I mean, relationship to the indigenous organizations such as ISNA and NAIC.
Okay, we are rather more specialized in our work. We deal with the strictly MASJID problems of the mosque, day-to-day problems of the mosque. ISNA, if I understand correctly, is a general Islamic organization which deals almost about everything that concerns Islam on the continent. Yeah, and even in our work as an organization of MASJID, we still seek the support of Islam, and if there's anything we can do to support Islam work, we'll do it. And I think automatically we are doing that. But if it needs to contact the brothers in Islam to plan together and execute together, there are more than one reason which require this kind of cooperation.
Let me just add this, because we are going to be here for 3 days, and some of you are here for the conference, and you'll have an opportunity to explore those issues in greater depth. We want to give the press here who won't be with us in many cases an opportunity to ask questions that otherwise will not be asked. So
I would like to hear Dr.
So if I don't know, unless Dr. Naseef wants to respond. Okay. Why don't we wait? We're going to be here for 3 days, and you can talk to them extensively. We're not trying to foreclose you from speaking, but this way we can have the balance. I think yes, with the press also?
Yeah.
Okay, go ahead.
My name is Mohammed and the publisher of the newspaper Minaret from New York. I have a question with Dr. Naseef. In the light of the statement by Sheikh Abbas, which was published in the New York Times, that atheist and Christian forces are in Saudi Arabia to defend Islam, and Allah will reward them. And I heard that Dr. Abdul himself today on the television this morning, he said that we can invite the non-Muslim forces also to defend Saudi Arabia or any other purpose. So I would like to know the position in the light of Quran and Hadith, that how far we can invite the non-Muslim forces in the Islamic country, whether the Quran and Sunnah permits it. Thank you.
They said that this conference will be concentrated on a much more important issue of bringing unity and harmony. This matter which is a conflict which is dividing our ummah right in the middle. So we better not overshape this conference with this issue at this moment. If it is being brought during the deliberation of the Congress, let it be done. But I can give you the statement which was passed by the Congress in Mecca, with the declaration and the resolutions, and you'll find the answers there, which has been done by the ulama in Mecca.
Okay. Yes, sir. Go ahead.
My name is Hisham Jabber of Islamic Press International, TV, cable television series, and newsletter of New Jersey and New York. And I want to, first of all, thank all of you that's on the panel, and I want to pose my question to Imam WD's team. First, I want to congratulate you. I have not had a real chance to talk to you since you was in Holland and Sister Saudi Rasul's place. You remember that? And you had just taken over the organization at the time. I want to congratulate you on the tremendous job that you've done in transforming this organization into under the shadows of Quran and the Sunnah of the Prophet Muhammad. Number two, I want to ask you is, do you feel that what we call, I hate to use these terms, but it has existed, that your organization and the Sunnah organization or Muslim that's all out there, do you feel that we should be more cohesive and respect and try to give more recognition to the growth of the Muslim, are still trying to pull apart by using identity of different organizations, or either they're saying one ummah?
I think we're making a lot of progress toward the situation that good Muslims can be comfortable with, and that's good rational Muslims. And that is a situation where we recognize what is the common interest, what is the common interest that all of us share as Muslims. We have our organizations, we have our different colors and races, but what brings us together? What is the common bond for all Muslims? And we should work together and ignore our distinctions when it comes to organizations, race, whatever. We should ignore all of that in favor of the common interest, which is our identity as Muslims. However, I know that there's a tendency in American, African Americans, Black Americans, because of being lost from identity, lost from Africa, lost from identity, there's a tendency to grab some identity from outside to shop in the world for identity. I'm against that. So we have to build upon our own distinction, our own life as African Americans, and at the same time realize that the bigger concern is the life of the Muslim.
I would like to propose one question to the Director of the Muslim World League Office of the United Nations of North America, Dr. Kudbi, if I may. Dr. Kudbi, do you feel that the office in New York, since you've been there, I know that you haven't been there too long, but do you feel that it has enough outreach, or do you feel that you would need more workers to implement the programs that's coming through that office, or do you have enough cooperation with the various local Muslim communities?
Okay, I'm glad you asked that because the committee is here and representing all of us are here. I think working in a continent like America,
so vast and complex. The size of the office and the staff and the resources will never be enough because the work is ever increasing. And we are hoping to improve our performance, optimize our work, and also appeal to the alternatives. And all of you who help in any way you can help to expand the work of the office.
We're going to take just a few more questions, and then we're going to close out, and maybe if you want to speak after, we don't want to delay the time.
Oh, yes,
You want to make sure you're there. That's it. The Muslim Journal and this gentleman also. You had your hand up first. Go right ahead, please.
Assalamu alaikum. Ghazi Khan Khan from the Voice of Islam Radio. Your Excellency, Dr. Qutbi, as you know, in the third world, it is said he who controls the army controls the government. But here in the United States, it's he who controls the media who controls the government. Why haven't we done enough to have our own Islamic media?
One of the workshops here, it should be really dealt. I'm sorry. This issue should be dealt with in the workshop in a proper manner, because this is really the divisions we are facing today. We have to recollect our resources and work together in order to develop the capability in the field of media, which we are very poor in that. And I know it is a very expensive operation, and you might need a lot of money, but let us think of the let us entertain all ideas, and we might come out with a suggested organization to do it.
We'll take our last question from Muslim Journal. Okay.
Yeah, I have two questions. I had one before, but with the last commitment by Dr. Nassif, I have one more that I want to add. I think, and I may get a reaction from you, I think the problem is not that we don't have the capability. We have enough well-seasoned journalists that we can use. The problem is helping them to develop and supporting those who are really ready to work, because we have so many Muslim newspapers or media organizations who, with the little resources at their disposal, they're doing a tremendous job. That all they need is the support of those who have the wherewithal, and they will silence the Sun-Times and the Chicago Tribune and the Washington Post and all those media organizations that are being used to suppress the voice of Islam in this country. The second question that I wanted to ask, as somebody who has come from the continent of Africa, I've had experience of situation where Muslims are growing, and you see different forces from all over the world coming to get their own support groups and dividing the ranks of the Muslims, depriving the Muslims the power that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentioned. وَاحْتَسْمُوا بِحَبْلِ اللَّهِ جَمِيعًا وَلَا تَفَرَّقُوا. They come in and they actually divide the Muslims with their own tariqas and different groups. Now I see this growing in America. We have indigenous Muslim leaders who are well developed enough, who have rose to the rank of sheikhs here. But we see our own Muslims here not recognizing their own sheikhs, wanting sheikhs from abroad. What can we do? What can we do to make Islam a home, well suited to this environment, to bring all these persons of communities together so that we can have one ummah? It can be answered by anybody.
Who wants to tackle that first?
Yes, very simple. Be sincere, keep working at it.
All right. I think I saw one last question. Yes, sir.
Yes. Assalamu alaikum. This compliment expressed on behalf of many Muslims here. In reference to Minister Farrakhan being on the agenda, understanding the philosophy that's being espoused still by the Nation of Islam. Maybe any of you, maybe Imam WD Mohammed, maybe give some insight or maybe express how you feel Muslims should recognize or identify this, if you will.
If I had been asked this question maybe 3 or 4 months ago, I might have
I felt that there is more effort being made now by this organization to correct the mistakes of the past and to bring this organization closer to the true religion, or to represent, I would say better, the true religion. So for that reason, I feel comfortable with him being invited. I'm waiting with eagerness to hear what will he say to us.
We want to thank the members of the press, and we want to thank those who represent the press from Islamic persuasion. We hope that grows. We want to thank our speakers. Assalamu alaikum.
Well, we've just seen really some very interesting footage on that press conference, and it seems like it was some very sensitive areas of concern. Number one, the ISNA question that was posed. Can you give us some background of what happened there?
Well, there were a lot of sensitivities, and you already touched upon one of them. In fact, the sensitivities, you probably noticed a lot of security there, and we had an environment we didn't know really what to expect. It seemed that one of the questions from someone associated with ISNA, the Islamic Society of North America, for those who may not be familiar with what it stands for, his organization has been around for a time, and there seemed to be some concern about whether this meeting was going to supplant or replace what they view themselves as being around to do. I think Dr. Bugby, who is a former director of ISNA, handled that quite well, in that if anyone should understand the balance between what ISNA is and what this organization is, he should, having been in both forums. And so I think it was fortunate for us to have him there. We tried to get the brother in question, I know, in trying to moderate that sensitive moment, to get him to wait, because that's something that we should talk about in the body of the conference, and that this press conference should allow those in the press who won't be with us throughout the next few days to address their interests. And so that's more of an internal matter than it was one for the press. So it was a sensitivity. I think part of it, and I think I'll finish on this note, is that this organization is in some respects a conduit for resources. And being so, I think there were many people who were concerned about whether the resources that they may have come to find very critical in their operation were going to be hampered in some way. But our feeling was that resources should go where they can be best utilized, and ISNA should still get whatever it should get, but that it should not be limited to ISNA.
Well, you know, also in the context of it seems like it was a lot of sensitivity in relationship to Minister Farrakhan speaking to the convention delegation.
That's right. In fact, you would think that what have loomed largest would have been the crisis in the Middle East, in the Gulf, and it did, but that Farrakhan question seemed to be coming to the heart of the matter. And I think it's not surprising, because the crisis in the Gulf, in many respects, is a global issue, and the Farrakhan sort of begins to become the microcosm of that issue in a way that affects us in North America. So we weren't really sure what to expect. And I think Imam Mohammed, being the most wise leader that he is, really showed that he's open-minded on the question, that he was looking forward to hearing what Minister Farrakhan had to say, and that I think that set a stage for harmony, at least from the point of view that Muslims should be able to dialogue, no matter what our points of view. And so I think he set the stage well, as when we see Minister Farrakhan, he comes forth and speaks to the body. Many of us who have been closely associated with these debates and discussions weren't really sure what to expect. So Imam Mohammed really, I think, set the right tone.
What we're going to do now is take a look at that presentation that was given to the conference by Minister Louis Farrakhan. And when we come back, we will talk further with Imam Muhammad Abdullah about that particular presentation. So let's take a look at Minister Farrakhan.